One thing to remember is that your projects will always be based on specs, and that's going to control many aspects of it, especially what types of fittings or pipes that are going to be chosen whenever you draw out lines or put components in. So specs may be shared amongst different projects, or it could be project specific. So if you take a look at your screen right here, you're going to see that this spec editor is blank. There is no spec loaded. I happen to have it on a pipes and fittings catalog, but the spec itself is not loaded in yet. So there's a couple of ways you can bring in a spec. You have a spec loader right here that if you drop down, you can either create a new spec or you can open an existing spec. You can also go to the File tab here, and then you can open a spec from there. So it's going to take you to the part of your project. When you establish your project, you made a location for spec sheets, and within that folder is where you'll choose your spec. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a carbon steel spec, and I'm going to take the one that is 150-pound carbon steel, and I'm going to go ahead and open that spec. Now as you notice, this spec is going to populate as we open it. So we have choice of valves, T's, reducers, pipe. We have an olet, gasket, flange, different elbows, so on and so forth, and we have those in our spec. So you also will see three tabs up here. The first tab obviously is your Spec Editor tab, and that's where we can come in, edit properties, do those things. You also have a branch table editor. And the branch table editor is going to assign which fittings are going to be used whenever you connect a branch into your line. And then the third tab here is your catalog editor. And this is going to allow you to modify catalog content to customize your part information. So you can also change this for 3D part modeling, and you can add other 3D parts into it. So that's just a couple of things that you're going to see when you go into the spec editor. Now you may also notice that there are some yellow triangles in the spec on some parts. So obviously we always think that yellow means a warning, but actually what this is telling you is that you have more than one option in your spec for a given scenario. So you probably need to set a default, or Plant 3D is not going to know what to do when that situation arises. So if we go to the part that's in question, we can right click on our yellow triangle, and that's going to bring up a dialog box that's going to allow us to set preferences. Now, we're dealing with a bolt set right here, and we have a conflict in the half inches. So if I want this to be my priority part, I can set it that way, and then I can do it mark as resolved. Okay, and as I go through these, if they're the way that I want them, all I need to do is mark them as resolved, or make a change in priority, but as I go through these, mark them as resolved. So if I go through here, and perhaps I just want to select the rest of them, I'm happy with the way that they are, I can mark them all as resolved and apply that and say OK. And then you're going to notice that after you do that, you're going to get the green light or the green dot right there. Now, another thing that can be useful to you is we're not limited to working on one spec at a time, or I should say, yeah, you can edit them more than once. So if we have a couple of specs that we can do, we can actually open another spec from our spec folder. And let's say that I want to work on the 300 spec at the same time. I can go ahead and open this, and now that's going to populate with that. So now I have the CS 150 and the carbon steel 300 both in the same area that I can work on simultaneously.